Hi-ya! Yes, ladies and gentlemen, for the Fringe FM, coming at you live from the middle of nowhere, the center of everywhere, here once again to give you yet another scrumptious dose of conversational boogie. This is Shift Happens. A little bit of a late start there, but it's all good. And, yeah, Erik, I just sent you the number for him to call in. So there you go. And, yeah, there he is. Hey, Scott the Rocker, what's happening? Deb, Pat, everybody else in the chat room. Jess. Special thanks to Jess for hooking us up to the network tonight. Extra special thanks to Jess. Thank you very much. Much appreciated. And, so yeah, here we are, folks. And tonight is going to be quite the fun episode. Let me tell you. So here's what's happening, folks. The first hour, well, yeah, there you go, Erik. Yeah, just text it to him. That way I don't have to put it out in the chat room. Yes, thank you, Jess. So here's what's happening tonight. First hour is AMA with Erik Awakening Man. That's Ask Me Anything with Erik Awakening Man. Any questions you have whatsoever, feel free to put them in the chat room, and you can ask Erik anything, and he will answer anything. And so that's coming up in just a little bit. And but for now, do follow us on Twitter over at Shift Happens Pod. And honestly, what I should have been saying this whole time is just go to shifthappensradio.com. We've got all of our social media links, the show archive, everything you could possibly want from Shift Happens is over at shifthappensradio.com. And there you go. But, you know, still, definitely follow at Shift Happens Pod on Twitter. And if you want to follow me personally, very personally, you can follow me over at GGRabbit1 over there on Twitter. And joining us as per usual is our trusty co-host, Mr. JP. What's happening, my friend?
What's happening, GG? I'm glad I made it. It was a crazy week, and all I can think about is the rumor of $10 a gallon gasoline in Los Angeles, and I just want to scream. But I'm not going to. I'm just going to hang out here and listen to Erik and you and chime in when needed.
Right on. Yeah, how much is gas out there right now?
Dude, there is a gas station out here that has $8 a gallon gas. That's not the average, though.
Holy shift.
No shifting around. I want to say it's been in the $6 range.
Damn, I remember, man, when I was living out there, I remember there was one point it hit $5, and I thought that was crazy. Wow. Yeah, that's... And
you got to wonder why it's all happening. How produced is this, and how, really, when you get down to it, how much of a restriction on oil there. There's a lot of questions to be asked, and everybody out there should be kind of concerned in a way, because all of this is doing is going to divide people more, and that's more economic hardship brings more division. It's just stay away from the rumors, but this is very real, right? It's hitting our wallets, so I figured I'd bring it up. Kind of affecting everybody. Even those, I used to love driving and hitting the border into Arizona because I knew $2.25 gas, and all the way through it into Texas and all that. Not anymore. So across the board.
Yeah. There's every time I drive from anywhere to California, I usually cross the Arizona border, and I make it a tradition to stop at that Carl's Jr. that's right there, right by the border, and then I fill up on gas right there, and then I go into California. That's what I do.
Yeah.
And pick up a good old-fashioned Big Carl. Can never go wrong with a Big Carl. You know what sucks about Austin is we don't really have Carl's Jr. out here. I missed that. I totally missed that. But, I mean, there's a couple, but not anywhere near where I live. Now, again, real quick, let me bring this up. I'm supposed to do this. So, ladies and gentlemen, there is a fundraiser happening for the Fringe FM, keeping the Fringe FM alive and keeping it free. If you can donate, every little bit helps, even just a couple of pennies, maybe a few cents, what have you, or maybe a couple of bucks, whatever you can do. We've raised quite a bit of money already, and but we still haven't reached the goal yet. So the Fringe FM fundraiser, just go to www.fringe.fm, and right there in the middle of the homepage is the link to donate. So if you like this show, if you like all the other shows on the network, Jess Rogie's show, Michael Strange, Joe Roop, obviously, and everybody else, we could definitely use some help in these troubling times. So definitely donate if you can. We would really, really appreciate that. And let's see. And so with that, let's go ahead and get the boogie going. Let's go ahead and bring on our first guest of the evening, and that is none other. You know him, you love him, your hero and mine, the one and only Erik Awakening Man. What's happening, my friend?
Hey, brother, I'm a hero. I didn't even realize that, actually. I didn't even know that I was a hero. I appreciate that, though.
I'm cheering.
It's a trip because I remember when I first got interested in all this. I remember it all very clearly. I remember actually JP and I having actually many. They were fun conversations. They were kind of we used to tease each other a lot, and we used to trash each other pretty hard sometimes. But I think we both knew in the back of our minds that we were just kind of playing. But we were playing with big boy pants in those days, right, JP? That was fun.
We were having fun, but I think like a lot of people, I used to get into it with Gigi. We've talked about it.
Yeah, same thing with us. Yeah, that's exactly how we met too. Yeah,
that sometimes partly I will take some responsibility because I see the pattern here. But I do like to put people to the test. I like to get it out there because I don't know. I guess
fun.
Some people run into another car just to meet somebody. At least I'm not, hurting anyone. I just like to really dig in and see where you're coming from.
Yeah, it was good. It was good times. But I think that even you have come in your evolution of whatever awareness, acceptance, whatever you want to call it. But you seem to be more accepting to some of the things that I used to talk about that sounded probably crazy to you back in those days.
It's funny. When I started writing and blogging online, my first blog was a UFO blog, and it blew up. It's still to this day my biggest blog. I even have my website now is Property of Mars, and I started way long ago, but the website's new. I just took it from the blog and made it a website. But you're right. I was the local here in LA. I don't know if you remember Examiner.com, but I was the Santa Monica City UFO Buzz Examiner. And I wrote hundreds of articles, and I was into it. And then one day I just couldn't stand any of it. I just called it for what it was, in my view. And but then I came to terms knowing you and other people out there that we've had on our show, and just meeting different people. It's like it doesn't help anyone to just call bullshit right off the top. It really helps to kind of process and really listen. And I think I'm better at that now for sure. But thanks for noticing.
You're almost like a new person in a way. It's kind of trippy talking to you. But I feel you. I actually, it's interesting. You might have had the evolution. Matter of fact, I think you did have the evolution before I did, because why I say that is when Clifford Mahooty died about 4 months ago, I was going, gangbangers. I mean, just traveling around and talking to all these people and getting information and researching and so on and so forth. But that kind of it caused me to stop and pause. And during that pause, I did a lot of thinking, took a step back, kind of backed out of some situations and some relationships, and then I kind of became disinterested, and I kind of became actually more skeptical than I was. I was always very open. I always wanted to believe everything I heard, although there's always a part of me that knew better, but I wanted to believe. But then lately, I just got this feeling like there's just so much bullshit out there. And so I think that's probably the phase you might have been in when I came along. And you're like, this guy's just another guy telling stories, and I'm going to give him a hard time. But you're right. Some people have stories that are legit stories. A lot of people don't. And it's hard to know the difference until you've been in this kind of game, or Jimmy Church calls it a game. It is a game, because there's a lot of liars out there, but there's some truth out there, and it's hard to figure out what's real and what's not. And hopefully tonight we'll talk about that.
I'm glad you brought up Jimmy. He taught me a very important lesson. I met him in LA with Gigi, and the one thing I took away from that is, regardless of how I feel down under it all, or you or anybody else, if we're gonna truly get to next level, we've got to just kind of not hide it, but don't use it as a weapon, and don't use it to negate other things. A lot of things that I say renders me, anti-religion or anti-Christ-like, and it's not true. I respect everybody's, and everybody's right to do with their body as they will. Go ahead and do it. I'm just more careful, I guess, about the fights I engage in. So, yeah, you've gone through it too, and you've seen it. And I really learned about news cycles. That was the most important thing for me. After I learned about how news cycles form, evolve, and become what they become in front of our eyes, it was incredibly enlightening. And so, yeah, there's that.
Well, let's get this ball rolling. Gigi, it's Ask Me Anything. Anybody. Just start firing away. Let's not mess around anymore. Let's quit jacking around here.
Well, there is one question so far. I'm not sure if you saw that from Elfman. I'm not sure if you want to get into that. That might be a little bit out of bounds.
I'm not looking at the chat room right now. Go ahead and read it to me.
I almost hesitate to do so.
I can always decline to answer, or I can make some stupid joke about it, and we'll just go to the next one. But I know Elf's a jokester. I like Elf. He's a smart dude, but he's also a jokester. He and I are alike in a lot of ways.
Yeah, so, Elfman is the best. And we do have, I believe we have, real quick, before we bring our caller in here, well, here's the question. It is, why does Erik no longer like Jimmy?
Oh, good question. Okay, and I thought about this because I had a feeling this might come up.
Yeah, I thought so too. Yeah.
So, it's like anything in life. You're going along and things are happening a certain way, and you're having interactions and so on and so forth, and then information comes to light that you're not aware of, that you weren't aware about. And so then you got to decide, who's giving me this information, and is it legitimate information? And in this case, and I'm not going to try to throw Jimmy under the bus. I'm not trying to make him look bad. I don't want to try to screw up his show. At one point I didn't care, but I do care now. I actually, I do appreciate Jimmy. I do appreciate a lot of his the things that he allowed me to be a part of, and get to meet a lot of people, and we had a lot of good times. But we all have our ways about how we like to conduct ourselves, whether it's through our friendships or our relationships and so on and so forth. And some of us have principles and values and morals, some different than others, but just the way I was raised and the way I think is, if if I feel like somebody's running their show, let's say, I'm going to call Life a show, not the Fade to Black show, but running their show in such a way that doesn't sit right with me, then I got to make a decision. It's like, okay, do I just look away? And then does that make me a hypocrite? And I'm not a hypocrite. And, I decided that the way things were and how things were going, it just wasn't feeling right to me. And so I just decided that was it. And, it is what it is. I mean, I'll tell you what, I'm going to tell you something that nobody knows, actually. There's only one person that might know this, is I have not tried to call the show in months, Fade to Black. Matter of fact, I told myself I would never call the show again. But last night at about 9:40, 20 minutes before the show was over, I had some things I wanted to ask Jimmy about that had nothing to do with anything I just mentioned. I was just going to leave all that alone and just kind of move forward, which That's kind of where I'm at right now. Whatever happened in the past, even though I don't respect it or appreciate it, forgiveness, leave it where it is. It's not really my business anymore, so I'm just going to kind of back out. I'm not going to go there, but what I'm trying to say is I did call. I called in. I was on hold for 20 minutes. The show ended, but I thought that was a step for me. I think Jimmy probably knew I was trying to call because I was watching him on Facebook, and I'm not on Facebook, on YouTube, and I don't know. His expression on his face kind of looked. He kept that last caller on for a long time. I don't know if you listened to the show last night. That guy was on for like 20 minutes, and I don't know if he just was kind of dragging that out because he didn't want to pick up the call or what. But anyway, so yeah, I mean, that's it. I really, I'm not really mad at Jimmy anymore. I think he had a conversation I heard with a friend of mine, and it sounded like it was pretty positive, and it sounds like we all go through things. I'm not perfect by any means. I've made many mistakes, and so I gotta be willing to just accept that everybody makes mistakes, and even though certain things might piss me off, I just can't hold on to it forever. So yeah, if I run into Jimmy again, it's not. I don't think there'll be any problems. I'm not really. It's kind of been 4 or 5 months now. I'm just gonna let it kind of go at this point. It is what it is, and it's not the end of the world. Anyway, that's about the best answer I can give on that.
All right, very cool. Yeah, I like how you handled that question. That was very well done. Very well done.
Thank you.
Absolutely.
Well, and I totally get you. I've had to make some tough choices, Eric. Things I thought were beneficial for me, or things I thought I was helping. I was doing the exact opposite, and what narrative do I want to? Consistency is the key, and you got to stay consistent.
Yeah,
and that leads to some tough decisions. So I'm with you on that all the way, man.
Well, unfortunately, the other thing too. I don't even know if "unfortunately" is a word to use here, but this whole ufology podcast, and I mean, there's so many podcasts out there. I mean, there's so many. It's ridiculous how many there are. But you meet people, you talk to people. Some people you like what they say. Some people I think this person's probably not a bad person. They're probably not even a stupid person, but they're naive. But they think they know more and they're smarter than they are. Not to say that I know more than anybody else or that I'm smarter than anybody else, but when you've been studying this stuff and you're out there and you learn things and you've got other people kind of coming new to the game, bringing information like they're authorities all of a sudden, that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way. I paid my dues, but there's a lot of people now that are doing podcasts that are, I'd like to say their names, but I'm not going to. I might have 3 months ago, I would have dropped a bunch of names, but I'm not going to do that anymore. But the point I'm making now is there's a lot of neophytes in this business, in this UFO game, and it should be taken seriously because it is serious. I mean, I'm not saying this for shock value. People know I feel this way. First of all, I believe 100% that there are UFOs that are in our atmosphere that we humans did not build. I would bet my life on that. Okay, first of all.
Yeah,
and I'm not just blowing it up. I'm saying that's what I believe 100%. I also believe that there are non-humans. There are probably entities that are either visiting or that live here somewhere, whether it's in another dimension, whether it's right here, like, in the apartment next door, or whether it's underground, I don't know, that might even look very human-like. And if you were to run into them in a grocery store or something, one might not even recognize that they're not really human, although they look human. So I think there's a variety of types of beings that are out there that are either here, they're either visiting, or maybe they've got an agenda, whether it's an agenda that they're reacting to because our military here, as well as militaries in China and Russia, are constantly trying to one-up each other with nuclear technological stuff that potentially could not only destroy a good portion, if not all, of the Earth and the people that live here, but it could also very easily have an effect on the atmosphere in space. So it's pretty. I mean, people have said this before. I'm not saying anything that hasn't been said before, but I believe these things now. That they're here. They're concerned. They're watching us. The Watchers. I mean, shit. There's been a million shows. There's been books written about. I think we're being watched. I think we're like kids. We're like, we're like kids in a playpen, and it's recess, and we're out there running around, and we're learning, and we're trying to figure it out. And then some kids are bullies, some kids are assholes, some kids are, you know what I mean? It's just we're not really mature as a species. Is the way I see it, and that's kind of where we're at right now. And we're at a critical junction. I think that if the human species doesn't somehow collectively get a grip, we're going to this particular brand of human that walks this planet now will expire, and there'll be a new brand of human that'll eventually evolve, just like it has in thousands of years before. I think that humans have changed and evolved through time, and we're lucky to be alive in this time. But I think the time is coming. I don't know. I don't think it's going to be tomorrow or next year, or even in 5 or 10 years. But it could be in our lifetime. We could see major changes. I wouldn't bet against that.
Yeah. Wow. Very, very well said. Once again. And now we do have. So we got a couple things going on here. We do have another question for you. But real quick, let's. Our caller's been hanging on the line here, 818. I'm guessing that could be none other than Scott the Rocker.
Sounds like a rock.
My brother, how are you?
Hey, man, doing all right. Your volume's a little low. Is there any way you could be louder?
I can talk louder if you want. Or do you need me to scream like I used to in my old days?
Oh, now you sound fine. Hey, what's up, my friend? Good to hear from you.
Yeah, man, great. How many questions I get to give this guy?
Quite a lot. But unfortunately, well, maybe not. We have to take a commercial break right now. So,
all right, I'll go get a drink and come back. How's that?
Sounds perfect. Yeah, stay on the line. We'll get right back to you, and we'll get back to the Ask Me Anything with Erik Awakening Man segment here on Shift Happens for the Fringe FM. All right, ladies and gentlemen, like I literally just said, you're listening to Shift Happens here for the Fringe FM. I'm your host, Gigi, along with our co-host, JP, and we're here tonight with Erik Awakening Man, and Scott the Rocker has called in and is joining us on the line as well. And we will be back here in just a few short commercially minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Listen, as we explore the mysteries of the universe, the unknown, high strangeness, consciousness, and our human potential, Lighting the Void is an eclectic program that strives to ignite the late night with stimulating conversations. Join us on the Fringe FM.
Yohoy there, it's Gigi from Shift Happens, and you're listening to the one and only Fringe FM. Well, at least I'd imagine so. I'm not sure how else, you'd be hearing this.
Musicians experience a lot of frustration with music marketing and promotion. They have no idea how to get their music heard, and they're spending hours sending emails, making phone calls, and hitting up their friends to promote them. With our industry-powered digital marketing platform, we can set up your media plan in minutes. Our team will automatically distribute your music across all the best channels, so you can focus on actually making the music. Submit your music today on our website at mymusicpromoter.com. That's mymusicpromoter.com.
My name is Alex Exum, and you're listening to The Fringe FM.
Are you avoiding the media? I don't blame you. Hi, I'm Jess Rogie, and it's my job to sift through the BS to find you the best in Fringe news. Listen to the Rogie Report news here on the Fringe FM, KTLK Digital Broadcasting. The truth is out there, and so are we.
Are you intrigued by Paranormal Talk Radio? You'll love the new Paranormal Radio app from TalkStream Live. You'll find a great selection of talk shows covering UFOs, ghosts, strange phenomena, and much more. Download the Paranormal Radio app now and start listening to the very best in paranormal talk entertainment, including the network you're listening to right now, the Paranormal Radio app, free in Google Play and the iOS App Store.
Have you suffered in silence or experienced stress from a paranormal experience? Even if it happened 20 years ago, when thinking or talking about it today still makes you feel sick to your stomach or makes your heart beat faster, or you suddenly can't breathe. Maybe you even feel those old familiar signs of a panic attack trying to reach the surface. You could have unprocessed emotional responses. Those reactions of terror and trauma are no different than living through a horrible assault, childhood abuse, or a terrible car accident. It can be nearly impossible to find help. The very instance of seeing a ghost or encountering a cryptid could be clinically described as seeing or hearing things that aren't there. You could be considered psychotic, or at best, you're just not taken seriously. Out of a growing mountain of research, the National Institute for Integrative Healthcare showed that 8 out of 10 veterans who completed just 6 one-hour EFT sessions no longer tested positive for PTSD. If you've had paranormal trauma, you can contact Metaphorical Archaeology by calling 214-995-3754. Again, that's 214-995-3754 for a discreet consultation. Thousands of people are having paranormal experiences with ghosts, demons, shadow people, dogmen, Bigfoot, and more. Their stories need to be told, and they are being told. Dark Waters, the renowned storyteller, invites you to join at IamDarkWaters.com. For just a few dollars a month, you can listen to some of the most hair-raising and compelling stories on the planet. You'll have access to real-life stories told by Dark Waters, thousands of hours of content. Their encounters are being told, and told by the best, at IamDarkWaters.com. Listen to stories like the Rabbit Man, the Dogman encounter in Silas, Alabama, the Man with No Face, the Other Woman, A Day Ahead of the Devil, Dogman Murder in Hurricane Ida, even a story of someone trying to kill a dogman. Louisiana water demon stories. Sign up today and become a member at IamDarkWaters.com. That's IamDarkWaters.com.
I came to LA to make rock and roll. Along the way I had to sell my soul. I made some good friends that make me say I really wanna be in LA. I took the 10 to get to Beverly, laid some rock to tape, roll up on 180. Alan and Natasha always make me say I really wanna be in LA.
And we are back. Yes. For the Fringe FM. Ladies and gentlemen, this is Shift Happens. I'm your host, Gigi, along with our co-host, JP.
I'm here.
He's here. Absolutely. And we are joined tonight by Erik Awakening Man, doing an AMA, Ask Me Anything with Erik Awakening Man, which, by the way, we've got plenty of questions in the chat room now. And also, as a special guest, we have Scott the Rocker on the line as well. My homie and partner in crime when it comes to conferences. And we'll get to Scott in just a second. So there's a bunch of questions in the chat room, but there is one that I want to get to first before we let Scott get off his rocker here. Pun intended. So Elfman actually asks a really good question. He says, Erik, which person that you have interviewed has changed your beliefs more than anybody else?
Ooh, that's a good question.
Yeah.
Change my beliefs. That word belief, it's that's a key word there because it's a gray word. If I was going to, what I mean by that is some things that if you experience them and you see them for yourself, then that's a different kind of belief than maybe a belief that, let's say, your brother, your friend, some guy that you met, whoever, tells you a story and it just impacts you in such a way where in your own discernment and your own judgment, you think, I just can't imagine that story is a lie, that person made that story up. So in that moment, I choose to believe them. Now, but there's a level of belief. It's like, am I all in on the belief, or am I saying I believe them, but I'm not going to go to the racetrack and bet money on it? You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So that's the thing I was thinking about, actually, because Marlon and Fletch asked some questions in there. But here's how my research has gone. In the beginning, going out, talking to a lot of people, getting a lot of information. See, and here's what happens is you hear a story, you get information, and then you stay in touch with these people. You communicate, and maybe a year or 2 or 3 or 4 goes by, and you see how the whole thing kind of evolves. And sometimes over that period of time, my original belief could either grow stronger or it could become less based on other conversations that occur that really don't provide me any evidence for me to say for fact that this is a true story or a false story. But I'll give you one example. There's a guy, I'm not going to say his name, but he's been on your show. He's a good friend of mine. I do trust him. Some people don't believe him. I believe him. He scores high on the belief list. And he and I have a mutual friend who I mentioned in the chat room. And we went traveling together, the 3 of us. And this particular person's a female and has amazing stories. They've been telling these amazing stories for quite a long time. Some of the stories I see could be plausible. Some of them I find quite difficult to believe. But here's what happens for me, and I think for a lot of people, is if you start to like these people and you enjoy their company and they're nice to you and they treat you good and you just have a social interaction with them. It has nothing to do with research or trying to figure out if they're telling you the truth or not. It's harder to come down on the side of I don't believe you. I think you're full of BS. It's hard for me to publicly out people to say I think that this particular person's telling some tall tales. Like, I have no fear about saying Corey Good and David Wilcock and Emery Smith, I think, are liars, because I'm very convinced of that. There's really not a gray area for me personally. But a friend of mine recently, who's still been in contact with this other person that I just mentioned, sent me a message. I haven't talked to him in about 3 months, and said, so-and-so, they've crossed the line. Too many stories don't add up. I think they're making these things up. I think they're lying. And as soon as I got that text message, I thought that's exactly what I've been thinking for quite a while, but I wasn't going to say it to them because we're all friends. So here's my friend reaching out to me, telling me that this person's. So anyway, that's kind of how it happens too. Is sometimes you need a consensus. It's like I can have an opinion about something, but if 2 or 3 or 4 other people who I trust their judgment and I trust their knowledge and maybe their ethics and so on, they might have the same opinion that I'm having, then I tend to lean towards this consensus saying that it's most likely that this is what's happening here. Although, again, I still don't have evidence. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's a tricky situation, but that's why I try to stick to what I believe. I do think there's a lot of people out there embellishing things a lot, and I think that they do it for attention, mostly for ego and for popularity. And some of these people are actually trying to make a living somehow, or at least trying to make money off of their popularity and their stories, and they're pretty much willing to cross those lines and kind of go out of bounds because that's just who they are. Some of these people are not bad people, though. See, that's the thing is some of these people out there telling stories, when you meet them and you talk to them, they're likable people. They're not bad people. It's just that you don't want to. I personally am not going to go tell, like, I'm not going to call you up, Gigi, and say, I heard this story and so and so, and this is great and it's fantastic, but I got no proof or evidence. It's just what I think. It's just it's tricky. It's just like, it's almost like you're a detective when you do this kind of stuff. Sometimes it takes a while. You can't just, even JP knows what I'm talking about. It takes a while sometimes to try to figure out what's legit with somebody, and if they're trying to play with your head or if they've got a legitimate story. You got to listen to the story that they tell more than once. You got to hear what other people, you know what I'm saying? It's not easy to figure out some of this stuff.
It's a great point. It's a great point, and that's totally that's the hardest part of all of this. And I think some people are nailing it on the head. There's a meme. There's a whatever you call that, a hashtag out there that and it's grown significantly in the last couple years. And whenever I see it, I kind of smile because I agree. I've agreed with this for a long time that we live in a post-truth world. And it doesn't mean that everybody understands that or what the hell it means. But in my view, there's some like very good people, and they don't have to be the smartest people. They don't need to have the most placards on their wall. They don't have to be the most well-known. They just have to be serious, and they have to, it has to have that kind of that tone. The tone of truth or whatever that is that you kind of, whatever it is that, I hate using this word now because I've used it so much, but the word that resonates or the things that resonate with you most. And it also has to have a deeper understanding than what most people have of our language, that the words that we say and the things that we do. Oftentimes, politicians are called liars, and a lot of time they are telling the truth. We just don't understand. Maybe we don't have the level of understanding of the words that they're using. We're not breaking down. We're not asking the right questions. So I think what you're saying totally is familiar in my world too.
So so let's bring Scott in. Scott, we've got about a half an hour, so fire away, brother.
Yeah, welcome,
you ready
Scott.
For the questions?
Yeah, let's do this. Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I've got like 6 questions here, so anytime you want to cut me off, you just cut me off. And Eric, I'm going to throw you a softball question right at the beginning. Is that okay?
Do one at a time, and I'll try to rapid answer them, and then if I need to elaborate, I will.
Okay, Eric, I've seen some growth in you, and man, I really admire your dedication, brother. Between you and me, I really admire that. Growing up, I always had a huge fascination of the unknown, and I think around the age of 10, I started to realize that my questions could not be answered. But Eric, did this happen to you, and if so, at what age?
What happened to me specifically, are you saying here?
Well, the fascination of unknown. I mean, UFOs, Bigfoots, all of ufology.
Well,
when did it occur?
Yeah,
to you
I actually
you were interested?
I found it entertaining. I mean, I would watch. I remember watching Ancient Aliens. I wasn't like addicted to it. I thought I was curious about it. I thought it was interesting. But no, I wasn't. I was never into it. And I was just like anybody else, let's put it that way, probably. I just was a guy doing his thing, living his life, workaholic, actually. And then till about when I was 50, and then I went through a period of time there where I was kind of going through a life change, and I was very sick, and I was forced to pretty much just stay home for 8 months. And during that time, did a lot of soul searching, but then also at that time I started reading more and looking into things that I didn't really have time to look into before. And then that's when I kind of got into ufology and all this other kind of stuff. And one of the topics that I studied right away was the history of evil, because I wanted to understand, how things ended up being the way they were. But and then John Polk, of course, was a key factor in all this. I mean, I got on Twitter only not to find out about UFOs, but just to kind of have a social life. And John Polk and I became friends, and I've told that story many times, but he told me I was going to start seeing UFOs, and I laughed, and I thought, this guy's full of shit. I mean, but I like the guy, and he's telling me a lot of interesting information. He's telling me Jesus was an alien, basically. And quite frankly, let me interject this real quick, is some of the people that I trust more so than others that are older, that are involved in in government positions, let's just say, the idea of Jesus being an alien is not far-fetched to these people, although they're not going to come out and talk about it. You're not going to see somebody like Richard Doty's not going to come out and say, I think Jesus was an alien. But I can assure you that some of the people in that type of circle, even above him,
so what you're saying is this all happened later in your life. This wasn't when you were younger. This was later in life.
Oh, no. Nothing happened until about,
Wow, that's amazing right there. That's crazy. Yeah.
Well, and I had these sightings.
Those are the best kinds, if you ask me. Those are the best kinds.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay, here's the second question. You ready?
Yeah.
In your time spent in the Bigfoot research field, did you feel like you have a solid understanding of why these creatures make these tree structures in the forest?
I think I have a pretty good guess, and I think anybody that's been a Bigfoot researcher for a long time, much longer than me, that has a lot more experience than I do, we're all guessing. Some people's guess are going to be more educated based on preponderance of evidence. The tree structures, they're all. I've seen them in many places in many states. I've seen them. It's pretty cool, actually. Let me tell you, seeing a tree structure, when you see a really massive tree, a tall tree, a thick tree, I mean, as big around as your thigh, somehow bent over without snapping it, bent over. We're talking like a 50 or 60 foot tree that somehow was bent down and then pinned underneath another tree. I mean, how in the hell does that happen? Tell me how that happens. Seriously.
I don't know.
That's awesome.
It's insanity.
Let me tell you, that's exciting to me. That's exciting to me because to me that's evidence. It's like if you go to let's say there was a shooting, and you show up and there's nobody there, but there's blood on the ground. You know somebody was shot because there's the blood. That's how I see tree structures, I think. And they're one of the questions in the chat room is, am I going to do some more Bigfoot research? Yes, I'm very much looking forward to going back to Utah, Idaho, and Montana, even California. I've been exercising and eating good and getting my health straight and get all my vans all ready to go. I'm ready to go. I'm looking probably later this month in July, August, September, October. There'll be a plethora of stories. And I think this year's stories will even be better because last year, a lot of these places I went to, I was only there for 1, 2, or 3 days. I was scouting out areas that I knew that I was going to want to go back to later where I can do some more serious research. And so I've got several places now where I'm going to go back and research where I think that hopefully I got a good chance of seeing something or experiencing something or having some sort of evidence that I could bring back for you guys.
Man, Erik, I'm looking forward to that, man. And all those pictures, sometimes I get pictures from you out there, and it's just so fascinating to me because of what my family and I had seen. Okay, I'm going to move on to the third question.
Yeah.
Are humans a bad genetic experiment that has gone completely awry, and do you feel as though the end is near?
Good question.
Can I just ask
two heavy questions?
Yeah. Could I just answer or give my point of view really quick?
Go for it.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have to jump in, and I've heard recently a lot about this. Like, what if we are the accumulation of not just like I don't know. In my view, it's I visualize, grandparents, great grandparents. I can kind of visualize 6-7 generations back. Imagine if we're the accumulation of billions of offsprings, and it just blows my mind. Like, it just gave me a whole different perspective. But I have heard recently too, and it was a little scary when I read a guy's view that the DNA tampering what if that happened a long time ago just to keep us enslaved? Just to add a little complexity to the question, Eric. But go ahead.
There you go.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's perfect.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. Humans, I don't think we're a bad genetic experiment. I don't think that. I think that it's most likely that other non-human entities have had an influence over years and centuries and decades and thousands and whatever. I'm just saying that I think we've been influenced, and for whatever reason, I mean, if I had to bet, I do think that there are races of beings out there that are somehow having an effect on humans. That if humans have the choice to just kind of run their show the way they choose to run their show without any outside influence, that would be their choice. But we don't. It doesn't appear that. What's that?
Isn't that the way it's going now, though?
The way what's going now? What are you saying?
We run our own influences through the world. I mean, look at what we're doing.
I don't think. I think we're under the illusion that we have all these choices and freedoms, which to a degree we do, but they're squeezing us. I mean, if you look at gas prices, you look at. I mean, I can go down the list. I mean, I live over here in Pismo Beach. But Lompoc, which is where the Space Force is over there, up there on the coast, over there on the Central Coast. You know what I'm talking about? Mm-hmm. They've got the planes that fly from there all the way right by my house, actually, over the top of me, pretty much all day long, and at nighttime towards Northern California, towards San Francisco. And I've been noticing, because I paid more attention recently, is these are the planes that are dropping the chemtrails on us, and they're coming right out of the frickin' Air Force Base in Lompoc. I am convinced of that, by the way. That's not me just trying to throw some speculative hype on the show here. So that kind of trips me out right there. I mean, why are they? And so I'll give you one example. And this, I'm going to use a TV series that you could watch. I told you about 1967. It's called The Invaders. I recommend everybody go watch that. They did 2 seasons. There's like 40 episodes. It's a great show. I never saw it till recently. But in this particular series, they even talk. It's weird. They're talking about they're trying to affect our atmosphere so that they can live here in this atmosphere on Earth. That's what the theme of the show is. So, and there was this one guy I interviewed one time back when John Polk and I was doing the quantum hologram matrix, who believes that these non-human entities that look human are actually. There's 2 guys that I interviewed that claim that they're involved in the military, and they're controlling the Air Force, and that's why the Air Force will not participate in disclosure. You'll see all the Lou Elizondo people, they bitch about why the Air Force won't come forward. We got the Navy and we got the Army trying to participate in disclosure, but the Air Force, they won't say nothing.
Yeah.
And I think if I was going to, this is speculative, of course, I have no evidence or proof, but this is just a hunch that it's possible that our military and what they're doing to our skies is being influenced not by just straight up humans, but maybe some other outside influence, because it makes no sense. We don't need I don't believe that we need to spray this stuff in our skies. I think that's a con game. That's my take on that.
I agree.
I always feel as though that what we're looking at is not the true reality, and that is why I've always presented this question, is reality even real? I can ask, this is going into my 4th question, which is really kind of bizarre here because it leads into it. My dad was a very successful corporate businessman, but he never took pride in his personal worldly possessions. In fact, growing up, I never knew he was a multimillionaire. I swear to you, my father taught me that counting your possessions was a waste of time. For when you die, none of these worldly possessions come with you. Now, my question to you, Eric, which is kind of weird here, once you look at the world around you, what the hell is this all for, and what are we doing here in all this nonsense? Because none of this makes any sense to me, and this goes back to the question when I was 10 years old looking at people stressing out over worldly possessions for whatever reason. None of it makes any sense to me. Answer that question for me, please.
My best guess would be this, is that whether it's consciousness or it's the actual spirit that lives within our vessels, our human bodies, or it's a combination of the two, I don't know, but it's something along those lines that it's here now. You and I, we're and Gigi and the people on the show, whatever, and so we're going through like a school almost, where we're learning, we're evolving, we're maturing, whether it's intellectually, emotionally, psychologically, whatever it is, that the human consciousness, the human spirit is evolving. It's just like it's been evolving for a long time. So it's possible that when our bodies, our vessels, move on, when they're no longer function here, that, depending on what our growth of, what our spirit growth is, our consciousness growth is at the time of expiration, could have a determination onto what part of this grand plan we participate in our next go around. I could only be guessing, but
Eric, man, I believe in that. Truly, that is incredible right there. I think it's our collective souls that learn something here on this planet, and it grows together as we pass on and move to it. That is an amazing answer right there. Perfect. Very nice question, man. Okay, so next question. Black Knight satellite, what gives? Tell me what you know.
Oh, good. Oh, shit.
All right. Well,
Okay,
I just
wow.
want to say we have about 2.5 minutes till the next break, so let's get it in here.
Break. Okay, so actually, this is a story that's going to be eventually. There's a man I talked about him about 4, 5, 6 months ago. Briefly, I put out some videos on my Twitter called the Blue Man, and people were interested, and I said I was going to interview him, and we did interview him for the Altered Show with Vinny, and the interview, because of the connection that we had with him, it was cutting out, so we were going to have to re-interview him. But the point, okay, so this guy, I trust what he's telling me to be the truth. Nobody knows him. He's 70 years old. He's not in ufology, but he had a 50 year NDA that's expiring this month. So I've been communicating with him, and he's given me a lot of information. I talked to a friend of mine. Some of this stuff I don't even know that I feel comfortable talking about publicly, but I'll say this. There is a point between here and the moon. I think it's called Lagrange 5 or Lagrange 7. I forget what he told me, but there's a space. There's a point, and you could find this. This is actually something you can research, and it's not like a mystery. Where there's the atmosphere and the gravity setup is different than what we experience here on Earth. And he claims that coming out of another country, I'm not going to say where exactly, I'll tell you privately, but that we do have these massive craft. And he says, I said to him, well, where do we build these things? Where do they build them underground? How do they get these 250 foot, 650 foot long mothership craft that humans are building with technology that, in my opinion, came from intelligence that exceeds the current human intelligence. But he says that they build these things in space. They don't build them here. So the Black Knight satellite, they're getting it from space. Why do you think they want to mine these asteroids? Why do you think they want to go to Mars? And why do you think they're apparently there is material in space, and some of it's come here in meteors, and some of it's crashed here in the form of UFOs that when we back engineer these things, we realize we don't have this material here on this planet. I believe that to be true. I believe we've come across material that we can now back engineer to some degree and build these things, and I think we probably had help with this. And I think it's going to sound crazy. I think it's a joint effort between humans and non-humans, and I couldn't tell you which non-humans they are. The guy that tells me he's got his opinions, but I don't have any evidence, but I do believe that's what's happening.
Very interesting.
I think that even actually, let me put it this way: a lot of the stuff I've seen now, looking back, I think originally I thought was a UFO, like maybe an alien UFO. Now looking back, I think some of those things were probably ours. One thing that I saw about 4 months ago, I called up Doty and I said, "This is what I saw. I've got pictures." I sent them to Doty. I told him what happened. I told him what this thing did, and he said that's a drone. And I thought, he's just trying to kind of like make me think it's a drone. Is what the first thought in my head was. He's trying to make me think this is a drone.
Yeah.
And he says, well, I got to be careful how I say this. Let me just say this. I believe that we Americans, humans, have drone technology that's using advanced propulsion that's not fueled by fuel. And that we have this technology and we're using it for space travel and for defense. A lot of this stuff I've learned has to do with defense. And that's, I've learned that I love our country, and I'm not going to try to be a hero and try to blow the whistle, but I think it's important that we protect some of this information. I get why these guys don't talk. Before I didn't get it, but I get it now. I think it's important when you see what Russia's doing, when you see what China's doing, we need to have a leg up on these people. We need that. And if we have this technology and they're lying to us about it, I'm okay with that, because if it keeps us safe, I'm okay with that. That's my take.
Yeah,
I'm
there we
impressed
go.
with you, Eric.
And
I know you got to go to a break, but I have one more bonus question, so maybe we can do it after the break, and then I can go.
Yeah, because Ryan Burns isn't going to get here until 15 minutes after the hour, so we'll have time for one more question. So, so let's go ahead.
Awesome!
Really great questions, man.
Yeah, fantastic questions, Scott.
I got one more good one, so hang tight.
Yeah, and we'll get to that
right.
as soon as we come back from this commercial break. Ladies and gentlemen, you're listening to Shift Happens here for the Fringe FM. I'm your host, Gigi, along with our co-host, JP, and we're joined tonight by Erik Awakening Man and Scott the Rocker. And when we come back during the second half of the show, we will also be joined by Skinwalker Research Extraordinaire, Ryan Burns. All right, folks, hang tight. Don't go anywhere. We will be right back.
KTLK Digital Broadcasting, thefriends.fm, Napa Valley, California, Little Rock, Arkansas.
Tired of talking about the weather? No Shift. Well, Shift Happens is here to fulfill your desires as you reach that point in life where you crave tantalizing conversation about reality, ufology, the occult, and the conspiracies within, while simultaneously finding yourself desperately in need of your very own theme music, which we've got plenty of that too. So be sure to tune in to Shift Happens every Friday night from 7 to 9 Pacific, right here on the Fringe FM. Because the weather sucks, and you need some theme music.
Ever seen an extraterrestrial? It can be hard to believe they exist unless you've seen one for yourself. What if I told you I've seen them my whole life, but have never had a witness who shared the encounter with me? Now, what if I told you I saw 4 of them, 2 with blue skin, and there are over 20 witnesses to this CE5 event. My new book, The Blue Beings, Visitation at the UFO Conference, documents actual accounts from real witnesses, many of which have gone on record to attest to this otherworldly reality. Be a part of the quantum paradigm shift that is taking place right now. Go to johnpolkmedia.com to get your copy of The Blue Beings, Visitation at the UFO Conference, on sale right now at johnpolkmedia.com. That's JOHNPOLK media.com.
This is Ronnie LeBlanc, author of Monsterland, Encounters with UFOs, Bigfoot, and Orange Orbs, and you're listening to Shift Happens on KTLK, The Fringe FM.
KTLK Digital Broadcasting. We rock the paranormal talk.
Ladies and gentlemen, for the Fringe FM, this is Shift Happens. I'm your host, Gigi, along with our co-host, JP. And we are here tonight with none other than Erik Awakening Man. We're going to continue the AMA with Erik for a little bit longer until our next guest comes on, Ryan Burns, Skinwalker researcher extraordinaire. And but in the meantime, we still have Scott the Rocker on the line, my partner in crime. And so let's go ahead and get to his last question before we bring Ryan Burns in here. So let's go ahead and hit it, Scott.
Oh man, you guys, I'm having some great fun here. I haven't had this much fun since the Bob Lazar incident, that with the release of his video down there in LA. What do you guys think?
That was epic. We almost got kicked out like 7 different times.
Remember that Gary Cassidy hung out with us? Hey, before you, let me interject one more thing real quick. I said that we're making these motherships in space. That's part of it. I also learned recently, and you just got to take my word on this. I don't have any evidence of it, but a lot of the stuff that they were doing way back in the day at Area 51, they're not doing there. They're doing other things there now. I think they're doing experimental drone work out there at Area 51 now. But the building of advanced flight spaceships, whatever you want to call them, airplanes, that's been moved, from what I've heard, to the state where Jeff Brunel lives. And also recently, through a friend of mine who is worked for the CI people. He's a contractor for 35 years. Has his boss's clearance is 10 levels above the president, and that is no bullshit. So he recently not into UFOs. My friend is not into UFOs. If I talk about UFOs or Bigfoot too long, he changes the subject. But he recently told me that his boss is in Utah, and there was something happened out there. And so I made a call to one of my contacts. You guys could probably guess who that is. And there was a crash out there. You're not going to see that in the news. You're probably not even going to hear about it. But shit's going down still, even to this day. And if you're in the right place at the right time, you might be lucky enough to see some of this stuff or even hear about it. It's not easy, though, to get this information. And you can't prove it or verify it because there's no way you're going to get in there to talk to the people or to see the stuff. It's just it's just like anything. You hear stories, and then this, you know what I mean? You just got to use your discernment. But anyway, I just want to share that with you. So go ahead, Scott. What's your last question?
All right. Well, real quick.
Wait.
Yeah. Hold on. Yeah, real quick. I would just like to remind everyone on the show that the more curse words that are said, the more I get in trouble. So let's try to hold that back a little bit. And all right, so let's go ahead with Scott. Go ahead, Scott.
Wait. Did you just say there was a crash that went down? Us or them?
I don't know what kind of crash it was. I don't know what it was exactly, but if there's somebody, let's just say at an agency that we all know about that's sent to a location like that has a clearance 10 levels above the president, they're not going to send somebody like that out there unless there's a real good reason. Damn. And that is what I'm told happened, and that's all. Even the person that told me, who has contacts, says that's all the information that he can get. But my friend, this other person who actually told me this to begin with, he's got to be careful because if he's talking to his boss, and then somehow he's such a patriot, he wouldn't tell me everything anyway. Even if I was his best friend and I begged him, he still draws the line with me. But he'll give me some information, and then I could take that information along with other information and piece it together like a puzzle. And a lot of times you can kind of figure out what's probably going on. Again, I have no proof or evidence, but I believe these things are happening.
Okay. So my last question basically is going to go to all three of you there, JP, Gigi, and you. If you have one choice only, you can't mix it up, aliens, from here or there?
Both.
I will. Well, he just said you can't mix them up. You have to pick one or the other.
That is correct.
That's a shitty question. I'm sorry.
I am going to go ahead and go first, and I'm going to say here. I think they're from here.
Yay!
Yeah. And I have a lot of reasons and speculations behind it.
Tell me why.
Well, for one, if you look at the history of GPS and world navigation, it's all been controlled by military from the get-go. And I guess what I'm getting to is, I guarantee you, I would bet my life on it, that there is other land masses on this planet that we have not been told about, that have been hidden from us for all these years. And I think that's... that solves a lot of problems with the aliens. Where are they coming from? How are they traveling from light years away? Like, how is that possible? Well, they're not. They're coming across the pond. They're right here. They've probably been here since before we were created.
Yeah. I agree with that.
And that's just my 10 cents right there.
Okay.
Yeah, I think real quick.
How about you, JP? I want JP before you go to Eric. Eric, you're going to be the last one, so I want to hear yours.
Eric, you can go. All right. I'm going to say inside. I go with I err to Gigi's side here. Yeah.
There you go. There you go.
How about this? So we've got supposedly we've got space ports out there that we built. That we've got humans out there living in these space ports, right? You guys know about this, right? It's not a secret.
Yeah.
So what happens?
What? Huh?
No.
Never heard
I mean, it's okay. I'll send it to you. But the point I'm trying to make is, it's most likely that they're here now because they've been here and they've been visiting here, and they probably got bases here. I'm guessing, but I wouldn't. I still think maybe for probably thousands of years, maybe millions of years. I mean, certainly, but I think that it's possible that some of these beings, whatever they are, that might be in dimensions or galaxies or in realms that are close enough where they could travel through a time travel or teleportation or science, quantum science that we don't understand yet. I do think there are humans that understand how they're getting here. Jack Sarfati is one guy who he won't talk to anybody because they always try to trash him. I think Hal Puthoff. I think there's several people that understand the physics on how these other living beings are traveling here. They're not traveling like we would imagine they are. But so I'm guessing that those guys are not coming here very often. The majority of them are
part of their experiment, Erik.
Okay, here's what I think. I think originally we weren't designed to be part of their experiment, but once we were here, humans, the other races of beings that were either here already or that came here or whatever that were more advanced, we then at that point became part of an experiment that humans maybe weren't originally intended for. That's a possibility.
Ooh, interesting.
Okay, so
bottom line is this: beyond our control, in my opinion. There's nothing, anybody, in my opinion, I don't care who they are and how much knowledge they have and how much money they have, how much power they have, is going to change anything about any of this. Whatever it is what it's going to be. And we just got to go along for the ride and try to be the best humans we can be, and just do, just use our, just do what we feel we need to do to think about not just now and today and tomorrow, but our future soul and spirit, and what we want. I want to give myself a chance to have if I'm going to have another experience. I may not even remember who Erik was in my next experience. But if I can imagine that I can give myself a better chance to have even a better experience than the experience I'm having now in this human body, which I happen to like the experience I'm having now. I mean, but if there's a better experience, I want to make sure that I don't blow it. I know it sounds kind of silly, but that's kind of where I'm at with it.
Well said, Erik. And you know what? You can't control the future. The future is already there for you.
No.
Now, my friend who's going to be on the show one day says that humans know how to do time travel. They know how to teleport, and they can go back, forward, and backwards in time. He tells me, and the way he tells me, and the way he explains it, I tend to think that he knows what he's talking about. Again, I can't prove it. I don't think he's not like a David Wilcock, Corey Good, Emery Smith kind of guy. He's totally the opposite, which to me adds more credibility to what he tells me, because he's not writing a book. He's not seeking attention. He's 70 years old. He's telling me about his experiences, his knowledge, and a lot of it I can't verify. He can't even prove to me. I just got to either believe him or not believe him. So that's where we're at with that.
Yeah.
All right.
I totally agree.
Well, with that, we have Ryan Burns just messaged me. He's ready to come on. So let's go ahead and get on to the second half of the show. Scott, you are more than welcome to hang out with us for the rest of the night. If you want to, you're more than welcome, my friend. So,
I make one.
I appreciate you. I'm sorry.
Real quick, Ryan. A lot of people don't know Ryan that well. Maybe just know a little bit about him, but and I'm not saying this because I like the guy and that he's coming on the show right now. I'm being honest. I respect other researchers, and this guy, he's right at the top of the list. And because he has a wife and kids, and he has a different lifestyle than I have, he has more responsibilities, and he knows so much that there's things he can't tell us and he won't tell us, but he knows more than I do about a lot of things. So listen to what this guy has to say. He's good. He knows his stuff, and he's a good guy, and I trust him. So that's what I want to say about Ryan.
Well, I'm going to say goodbye, and I want to say goodbye to all my space friends there, and I love you guys, and until we meet again.
Thanks for calling in.
Take care.
Yeah, thanks, Scott. Always great to have you on, and take care, my friend.
You got it, man. Take care, GG, and all. Bye-bye.
All right. Cheers to you. And with that, yeah, Ryan just tried to call in. Okay, let's add him now. And yeah, Erik actually just did a pretty good introduction for him. All right, let's see if he... here he is, ladies and gentlemen, the one and only Skinwalker Research extraordinaire, Ryan Burns. What's happening, my friend?
Hey, how's it going? Let's see here. For some reason, I'm not...
Oh, we can hear you loud and clear. Everything is good.
Oh, let's see.
Oh, can you not see us?
Just trying to get my audio here hooked up.
Okay.
Sound any better? Does that sound better?
It actually sounds worse than it did, but yeah, no, it's fine. It's fine.
Good works.
Yeah, and
how you been, GG?
Oh, just awful, terrible.
Bad question.
That's what I like to hear.
I'm just kidding. That's my stock response to anytime anybody asks me that question. But dude, first of all, I would like to thank you once again. Back last November after that Laughlin conference, me and Jeff and Erik and came out and we got in that badass vehicle that you had. What do you call that vehicle, by the way? What's it called?
It's a Razor.
A Razor. So we're in this off-road Razor vehicle, and Ryan Burns takes me and Jeff and Erik out in the middle of the Little Red Rocks out there, over there in Nevada, and he got to show us a bunch of petroglyphs that were out there, and it was such a fun time. And to be honest, I was kind of nervous because that vehicle can quite literally scale walls, and I was wondering if we were going to flip over at a couple of points. But man, that thing handled it, and we got to see some badass petroglyphs, and that was a really fun time. So thank you again for allowing me to partake in that little tour. That was absolutely fantastic.
That was a riot, man. I had so much fun with you guys, and there's so many amazing, ancient sites just outside of town, and it's, I wonder if it's like, I think that a lot of people probably have this sort of thing in their backyard, kind of like I do, like both in the basin and here in Nevada. And I think, a lot of people probably have these things, just in their backyard, but they just don't get out to look. So it was really cool having a crew like you guys that are very intrigued and interested in, these ancient petroglyphs and all kinds of archaeological sites. That's what it's about. That's the stuff that makes life interesting to me.
Yeah, me too. Absolutely. So, what? I've got about 1 million questions for you. But I guess I'll start off with this one. As far as Skinwalker Ranch goes, how long has that been on the paranormal radar? When did people start noticing that there's some weird shift going on over there? Is it decades? Is it centuries? How long has that been the spot?
Well, I had an experience before it was the spot. It was not always on the radar. And this stuff is quickly forgotten, as I like to say. You know, like a lot of other history, as soon as the potential for making money and having TV shows and things of that nature, and this is true of all places, as soon as that is on the table, a lot of the real ancient history and real researchers are forgotten. In my case, you know, the researchers that I was talking to, Mr. Ryan Layton and Chris O'Brien, and very important to mention others, Dave Rosenfeld, also AKA known as Alien Dave. These were the guys that I was getting clues and hints from. But it was only after I had a personal experience that I reached out to these guys because, like I said, it was not on the radar yet. Nobody knew about the Uinta Basin of Utah. Nobody knew about these mythological shapeshifters that have the ability to physically transform through inherently superhuman abilities. It was just a place in the middle of nowhere. And I was a fly fishing guide at the time, and I had injured myself, had a broken toe, and that's a whole other story, but I had some time off work because I couldn't get the toe wet. And I would typically row 10 hours a day, take clients down the river and catch them fish, fly fishing. So I had some time on my hands, and I figured I would go out and look for some holy water, like basically that water that hasn't been touched, fresh fly fishing water that hadn't been touched. So, and the basin it used to have more, but it has a lot of these, you know, oasis type spots where a lot of fly lines don't hit the water, and you have unique opportunities to catch amazing fish. I don't fish as much anymore, but back then that was what I was about, and I was looking for the big one. So I remember going down below Bottle Hollow Reservoir and kind of following the obvious lines of where the waterways were, and going up a random ranch road. There was no gates, there was very little fencing, and there was a elderly, what appeared now in retrospect, what appeared to be an elderly Native American kind of shuffling down this red rock cliff face robotically. And they looked really old. So I did what I thought was the right thing and rolled down the window when they got down to the clearing, and I said, "Hey, do you need a ride somewhere?" There was no response. This apparently looking elderly Native American person just got into the vehicle next to me. Never said a word.
Wow.
This entity, because it was not a person, I know that now, but this entity, at least not in the traditional sense of the word human, this thing got into my truck, and I remember I couldn't tell if it was a male or female, had a blanket over its head, very smelly, stinky, bedraggled, just not in good shape. The skin, all I could really see was the nose, a little bit of the chin and the lips, and it looked very necrotic. And it was very strange. It within seconds after me asking that question, it started kind of mumbling, and it literally went through my mind. I mean, I was brought to tears within seconds of this thing getting in my car. I knew I was up against something literally the opposite of shamanism. I mean, you could just feel it. And
wow,
it just kind of went through my mind like a Rolodex, searching for like the highs and lows in my life. I could kind of feel it picking at these things and archonically sort of feeding off of this. And I, as is commonly the case, I lost a couple hours, and almost 3 hours. And the Bureau of Indian Affairs found me right back up at the reservoir. I don't know how I got there. Wasn't really in a parking spot, just kind of hanging out of my truck, held in by my seatbelt, and in a basically catatonic state. They had to wake me up, shake me. And it sounds like a thing of fantasy or like science fiction, but they started asking me questions. I answered the questions to the best of my ability. And that's when I heard the term skinwalker. The guys kind of huddled up. They were really kind to me, and they kind of huddled up amongst themselves, and they said, this guy obviously got nabbed by the skinwalker. That was their exact comment. And in my mind, I was thinking, I've never heard about this before. And I started looking into it. And that's how it started for me. This was late 90s. And this was before anybody knew of or heard of anything having to do with the phenomena or the craze that is now so widely accepted in the paranormal world.
Yeah, and I was listening to an interview earlier today, as I usually do before I have a guest on. I like to go and listen to old interviews and see what's up. And I heard you tell that story. That's very trippy, very trippy. And JP,
very trippy.
You're muted, by the way. Okay, yeah. there you go. I have a theory about Skinwalker Ranch that I want to run by you, and that is Jeremy Corbell. I'm sure you're familiar with him. He did a whole documentary about the Skinwalker Ranch. I forget what it's called, but everybody knows what it is. And there is at one point in the documentary, because here's the thing, there's all kinds of phenomena going on over there, not just UFO stuff, but just very strange stuff, groceries being unpacked after they put away the groceries. The story of the bulls getting locked into that little thing, and just very bizarre stuff. But I couldn't help but notice this one comment. I can't remember who said it. It might have been Bigelow himself, or it might have been one of the other NIDS researchers. But in the documentary, they said out of all those years that they were there and studying the property and doing all their stuff, they could not find a connection between the UFOs and the anomalies that were happening there. And once I heard that, it just kind of a little light bulb clicked in my head, and I came to this conclusion, which I don't even know if I believe my own conclusion. But the conclusion is, what if whatever is happening at Skinwalker Ranch is so phenomenal that the UFOs they're not actually participating in this phenomenon. They are showing up because they're just as curious as we are as to what's happening there. You know what I mean? Like, they're there to study what's happening. Has anyone ever told you that theory? Have you ever heard this theory?
I like that theory. I've heard of stories. I don't want to mention who it was that told me this, but there's evidence that would lend credence to your theory, Gigi. One particular case was some scientists watching a portal open up, and there's many varieties of properties in the area now. I've purchased a property known as Space Wolf Research, and I sold part of that property to another guy. He's doing this kind of a center for starry wisdom. And anyway, long story short, there's a lot of this going on in the general vicinity. And these scientists were watching a portal open up. And they were watching what they thought was some kind of creature in this portal or entity, whatever you want to call it. And as they were watching this portal, which they do open up in the area, this is not uncommon, and there's dozens and dozens of people that can verify this. But they had that feeling that they were being watched. And they looked over, and there was, for lack of a better word, the most similar thing to call it is like alien grays standing there watching the same portal. They weren't watching the scientists. They weren't watching the researchers. They were watching the same phenomenon that was what originally caught the scientists' attention. So, yeah, that's a very good possibility. There's definitely something emerging from all this. And as you said, there's multiple things taking place on the same chessboard. And there's not just two players. There's lots of players involved.
Yeah, there's at least like 17. Yeah.
Let me run in a quick question by Ryan there. So Ryan, I respect that you've made agreements that there's certain things that you're just not really a good idea for you to discuss. If in your best political fashion, you don't have to discuss what it is you're not supposed to discuss, but can you give us an idea of the realm of the sort of things that you're suspicious, however you want to word it, but what can you tell us? Get into that gray area without crossing the line. I mean, these guys know these things. They know you know, and other people know, and they don't really like you telling too much, right?
Right. And actually, the term of at least the property that seems to get the most focus, that term has actually been trademarked. So I like to call it Skin Rocket Ranch, because there is there's so much going on there. There's so many tests. A lot of those tests are taboo to talk about. Many of them are for entertainment purposes only, in my opinion. But the reality is that, yeah, they're literally... This is tough. I knew he'd throw me the good questions.
That's why he's here.
Let me tell you something. Okay, so when I was out there in September, very clearly I saw that massive triangle. I've got video and pictures of it, and it was just hovering. It wasn't moving. It was just hovering, and it was so huge. I mean, I'm just trying to think. Do you think, is it possible that humans, maybe some military or maybe some contractor or whatever, it would be testing something, a massive triangle out there, maybe within a 20-mile range of Mighton and Vernal and that whole area out there? I mean, do you think there's testing going on possibly?
I can say that it absolutely has in the past.
Okay, good.
Okay,
comment on what's currently happening.
Hold on, I'm gonna have to cut everybody off. Eric, for some reason, there's an echo coming from your end. So when you're not talking, if you could just mute, that will fix the problem. All right, perfect. All right, go ahead, Ryan.
Cool.
Yeah.
What I can say is this: yes, the gentleman that I sold some acreage to, that's right beside me now, we're neighbors. He's doing his own research, and he prefers to not be mentioned by name on air. And I met him through Jeremy Corbell. I think Corbell's documentary was very good in that it explains a lot of things that have been ignored up until that point.
Yeah.
And then everybody pretty much jumped on the deep-seated taboo train, and they're running with the ball now. Now, traditionally, the ranch, it holds a lot of secrets. It is an excellent testing ground, at least historically, for technologies that could be used in extreme warfare. Among those technologies is one that is known as a invisibility cloak or invisibility suit, because it's not a cloak, it's an actual suit. And this is very well covered. If anybody wants to read it, absolutely freaking amazing book that goes into this in detail. It's Camellia by Robert Guppy. And it discusses this actual technology, which was originally created by one man and then sort of pimped out by the government. And yeah, it's real. It's real. I don't know how else to say it's real, but it's real. The laundry list of government contractors, because all of this is denied by the government, and it's done through plausible deniability by allowing contractors to utilize their private sector capabilities in a way where the government does not have to disclose anything because it's not them doing it. And yeah, the laundry is it's probably the list everybody is thinking of. All of the biggest names, all of the black budget organizations that you would expect, they're there. Or let me back up. They were there. At least traditionally speaking, they were interested. At least, you know, and there has been, a lot of this has been declassified. You just have to be careful because, you know, we have a lot of top people. Colonel John Alexander, for example, he was basically the father of non-lethal weaponry. And much of that, at least his knowledge, was tested to the very brink on that property. And anyway, to answer your question, there is the military and the government aspect. You have to be very careful because it's really thin ice. Because you know what, our enemies want to know the answers to, and there's a lot of bad characters out there. So it's important to avoid that. Now, like speaking in a more realistic sense, like it's not all UFOs. I know that seems to be the very clear choice for media companies and the like to concentrate on the UFO phenomenon because it's safe. It's not something, you know, it's easy to point in the sky at something that is 300 yards away and say, wow, what is that? That's awesome. But there's also more. There are mythical powers, powers that are hard to mention, things that are able to turn into or possess an animal or a person, traditions that are similar to witchcraft taking place. And that, you'll notice, is never touched on. That has all kinds of cultural things that could become dangerous territory for viewers. And nobody likes the idea of malevolent medicine taking place and, you know, achieving the highest level of like this dark arts priesthood where your main power or your main purpose is to inflict psychological pain, much like I described as my first event in the area. But it's very real. And it's a part of the puzzle, and it's unfortunate that this part of the puzzle has not really been touched on, in my opinion, for fear of not only retribution from these malevolent beings, because there's a reason why these Native American cultures don't even like to say the word skinwalker. There's a reason, and it's not only the bad luck; it's a lot more to it. So there's that. And then you have the portals that we were discussing where there's literally a new world emerging through a circular ball of light that starts from a 0 point and begins to expand. I mean, that is intensely like multiverse oriented. I don't know if that's, you know, what is on the other side of that. It's not here. I can tell you that it's not where we are, because the things that will come through these portals, they will leave tracks in the snow, they will leave tracks in the dirt, and many of these tracks are not known animals, and Things like dogs are oftentimes ripped apart. It's not just the Shermans who reported having dogs vaporized, there in the vicinity. Terry and Glenn Sherman, it only took them 18 months, to realize that they were literally in an area that they weren't the ones in control. And I think that's the important thing, is that there seems to be an intelligence not only to the land itself, but also to the entities that have a tendency of roaming it. There is the array, as was mentioned, the array of aerial phenomena. I tend to think that the triangles are in fact possibly, I got to watch it here, but it's possibly toys of ours. It's possibly human constructed toys, to use Corbell's term. And going back, I'm not the only one. Harry Sherman himself, when he would venture out on the property trying to hunt this down and figure out what was coming within his boundaries, he would hunt it much like anyone would hunt an animal. He would hide, he would use a VHS recorder, or I believe it was Super 8. And, he thought the same thing. He thought, hey, these guys at Hill Air Force Base or wherever nearby are just testing their stuff here. That's what's going on. But I've mentioned it to you guys. You guys have heard this story. He estimated that that's exactly what was taking place. However, he was one night filming some aerial phenomena in a field, and as he moved, one of his vertebrae cracked. Just kind of popped out of place. As it does with a lot of people, you move around and your vertebrae pops a little bit. Not something you can audibly hear. Well, whatever this was that he was filming instantly knew his location and zoomed in towards him. And I've had that happen to myself and other researchers when we're in the area. Not necessarily the vertebrae popping, but just any motion at all. I mean, it's almost, and I shouldn't say it is, but it's almost omnipotent in that some of these entities and intelligences that roam the landscape have the tendency to be able to know a lot more than humanly possible. Is it alien artificial intelligence? Is it a ancient archaeological aspect that is resurging when you're in a nearby vicinity to? There's a lot of estimations that people can make and theories, but the only things that I can track down legitimately is the Native American aspect. I have friends that are Native American. Speaking with them, I believe what they believe, and that belief is that there's something that is more tangible in our reality that we can grasp more readily and get a lot of answers from, and unfortunately that involves dark arts.
Yeah, very interesting, very interesting. Erik, I know you wanted to say something. Real quick. When I was recording and Raw was recording at the same time, that triangle, and I'm glad. I think you said Hill Air Force Base, HILL.
Yes, sir.
I learned something new tonight because I didn't know that Air Force Base. I haven't really dug into that, but the bottom line is this: is that we're looking at this thing, and it had to be 10 miles away from where we were, but it was very bright, and you could see on each corner of the triangle the light through the night vision. And then it would just turn off. But with the night vision, if you may know this, that I still could see the outline of the object. I couldn't see the object with the naked eye, but I could see the dark outline of the object. But it was still in the sky. And in that moment, I thought, whatever this is just fantastic. But to me, it's pretty bold. Let's just say, I don't know if it was the Air Force or not, but if it was the Air Force and they're testing that stuff out there, it wasn't hard for us to see. And I'm sure other people have seen it. Matter of fact, I know other people have seen it, that they would test it in the wide open like that. It kind of shocks me a little bit. Does that shock you at all, that they would make it so easy that people could actually see it?
if they were paying attention?
You know, I tend to think that the average person these days is not.
Hold on. Eric, you have to mute when you're not talking. For some reason, there's a problem with that. Yeah. Okay, go ahead, Ryan.
Yeah, the average person these days kind of goes through life with blinders to the things they're focused on, whether that be work, you know, Tinder, whatever's Dancing with the Stars is coming on, and they're not like us where they'll, you know, change their schedule to investigate something no matter how much time it takes. And one of my favorite researchers, Colm Kelleher, I think, you know, he said it best. And he, back in around the same time, late 90s, Dr. Colm Kelleher spotted a figure perched in a tree. It's been documented. This creature was at least 20 feet off the ground. And it lay motionless. So the creature wasn't moving, and Colm wasn't moving either. Like, he stuck it out, like he waited. Most people would just walk away. And so I think the average person doesn't, you know, investigate the way we do. As I mentioned, Terry Sherman would lay for hours hunting this stuff down. And it's not always easy because you're up against something that has all the time in the world, or may possibly be able to actually bend the space-time continuum.
Yeah.
But it loves to interact. There is a trickster phenomena that takes place, and that's one of the things that fascinates me the most from a research perspective, is that it likes interaction, and it likes to play. It likes to play.
Yeah, it likes
and
to play.
And a lot of it's weird. So, I mean, if you go into these situations with that open mind of wanting to interact in a playful way with somewhat of a trickster, I think that you can come away triggering something that will be very memorable. That being said, it's super important, and I can't stress this enough, no matter what your belief system, if you're Buddhist, Catholic, it doesn't matter. Native American, I don't care what you believe in. Whatever that higher power is, you definitely need to call upon it for protection, because if you don't, the consequences can be pretty heavy.
Very well said. Very well said. And now, one question
that
I did.
So damn interesting, by the way. It sounds so interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, one question I did want to get in, kind of a, you know, not a super surprising question, but the whole story with the bulls, where they just disappeared and then they found them all shoved in this container, and they weren't making any noise or making any fuss. What on Earth or off Earth could have done that? Do you have any theories about that? Because that's one of the most fascinating. I've heard all kinds of stories from Skinwalker Ranch, but that is one of the most fascinating to me. Do you have any theories as to what, how, who, when, where, like what happened there?
I can only assume that was a more, well, much like I was in a catatonic state when I was in that truck hanging out of it.
Yeah.
I think that anything biological can kind of be put in this state where it can be manipulated, moved around, taken here, taken there. And a lot of these, I don't know what else to call them other than entities that are involved in the phenomena, because there's more than one aspect taking place here. They have abilities that far surpass our own. Whether you're talking about a shape-shifting witch, or you're talking about a non-corporeal entity that can manifest as voices above your head. There's a disembodied voice phenomena that takes place quite often, especially around rocky outcroppings, where you would swear that there's just, somebody hovering above you, and it's usually 2 or 3 of them talking about you or talking about something, and it's usually in a language that is not discernible. It's a somewhat ancient language, and getting back to the government perspective of this, there's a lot of loose ends that if you just connect the dots, kind of like Erik was mentioning, there's more to be contributed by what's not said. And much like have you guys heard about the Erik Davis with Admiral Wilson document leak? Yeah. So it's a leak. Back then, the company, I can mention it because they're no longer a company. It was EG&G Special Projects, and they were involved with a lot. And I actually knew and know some people that currently work for now what was the parent company and what is now the company. And good people. But there was a leak that was where Erik Davis met with Admiral Wilson. If you have a chance, look it up. There's a lot of data there. And it's a leak for a reason. It's not supposed to be out. So, of course, you have the naysayers that are coming out and saying, oh, this is all fake, like they usually do. And that's the beauty of disinformation or counterintelligence, is the easiest way to cover something up is to call it fake. And that being said, the easiest way to tell people that everything is now on the up and up is to have media attention and just leave out the parts that you don't want to include. That's very simple. Then you can steer the narrative, and it's amazing what Bigelow and his research team experienced. Yeah. They had over 100 incidents on the property, and these were all reported, documented, and scientifically analyzed. To give you an idea, some of the characteristics that were kind of released, they would have things like a camera that was cut and another camera filming the camera that was cut. And whatever cut the camera could not be caught by the camera that was filming it. So we're talking about fractions of a second where this entity is able to do this. And so, pretty wild stuff. Stuff that was not disclosed, that I'll tell you, is even more interesting. They would place things like aquariums at the top of large telephone poles where nobody could reach them and put child's toys inside them and see how the trickster would play with these children's toys. So there's a lot of evidence that was not scientifically published, and I know that now the research in the area is more secretive than ever, although it is completely publicized.
With the new owner and everything. And honestly, we have to wrap this up. We got to go in about a minute and 30 seconds. But I do want to say I am really curious to know, NIDS and Robert Bigelow and that whole situation. I wonder how much, they say they didn't find out much, but I'm not sure if I believe that. I think they found out a lot, and I think they're not telling people. That's just my opinion. But with that, Ryan, thank you so much for coming on the show tonight. It's been an absolute pleasure. And, man, we'll have to figure out another time to get you on where we can have you on for a whole 2 hours and really get into all this. And again, thank you for that awesome expedition that we did That was so much fun. That was so awesome. That was so cool. So real quick, before we let you go, first of all, I do want to say we usually hang out after the show. You're more than welcome to hang out, but if you got to go, that's all good too. But with that, where can people follow you and catch up with everything that is Ryan Burns?
Yeah, you can go to ryanburns.com, or I also do a podcast. It's heroparanormal.com. You can find that on YouTube, Patreon, and all of the usual podcast sites. And you can also go to spacewolfresearch.com. And that's just kind of the little science project I have going on overlooking the entire area.
All right, fantastic. There we go. Once again, thank you for coming on the show. This has been a long time coming, and I'm glad we finally got to do this. And like I said, we're going to have you back on for a full show whenever we can make that happen. So cheers to you, Ryan. And thanks, Erik. And also thanks to Scott the Rocker for calling in earlier. And obviously JP for being our co-host here, and that's about it. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, you have been listening to Shift Happens. This show is hosted and produced by yours truly, Gigi. Associate producer is Brad Harris. You can follow him on Twitter at ADSBradHarris. Co-host is JP. You can follow him at Reperceptions on Twitter. Our roaming reporter is Erik Awakening Man. Special thanks to Erik Awakening Man. And as always, all blames and faults go to Fran. That's right. Hashtag Fran's fault. All right. Thanks, guys, for tuning in, but don't go too far, because coming up next, right here on the Fringe FM, not only is Joe Roop's show, Lighting the Void, but also after Joe Roop's show is Ryan Gable's Fringe FM farewell show as he leaves the network after tonight. So be sure to tune into that, and we'll be back next week. Ladies and gentlemen, have a great rest of your weekend, and we will see you very much sooner than later. Cheers, my friends.